The next story is the aged mother. The aged mother. Aged is old or elderly. So old mother, the person who is an old woman. Okay, the old mother. Okay. A long time ago, many years ago, in a large city, a big city, there was a woman, and she was an old woman. There was a woman, and she was an old woman. This old woman, she was very lonely and sad. She was very lonely and she was sad. One evening, she was sitting in her house. She was sitting in her house and she was thinking. She was thinking. She was thinking about her friends, her relatives, and her family. She was thinking about her husband who died a long time ago. Her husband died, and then soon she had 2 children. She had 2 boys, but one by one, both children died when they were very small. One child was 6 years old, and the other was 3 years old, but they both died. She was thinking about her friends, but her friends too, one by one, died. Her relatives, okay? Relations. Her mother and father, her aunt and uncles, her cousins, nieces and nephews, they all died. Her husband died, her children died, and her relations died. And that day, her last friend died too. So she felt very alone. She felt very lonely, and she felt alone, and she felt quite alone. She felt quite alone, very alone. She felt desolate. She felt empty. She felt heartbroken. She felt miserable. And she felt isolated. Isolated means she's away from people. So she felt, the people whom she knew all died, and so she felt isolated. She felt far away from everybody that she used to know. Now, she was very sad. The reason why she was very sad was because her children died. These were boys. Her sons died. And she was sad, but she was also, at the same time, she was very angry. She was angry with God. Can you see? Yes. God. She was angry with God. She thought God could have saved the children, but God didn't. And so she said it was God's fault that the children died. She blamed God for the children's death. She was angry with God. And so she was thinking, and she was not happy. She felt sad and angry and lonely. Then suddenly she heard the church bell ring. Ding dong, ding dong. And she thought, oh no, I have been thinking about my friends and family and children for a long time this afternoon, and it's already evening. It is time to go to church for evening prayer, And so she wanted to go to church. Now, she got ready to go to church, and she, because it's dark at night, and I don't know how long ago it was, but outside it was dark, and there was no street lights or anything like that, and so she had to light a lantern. Lantern is, I don't know how they lighted it. Maybe it was a candle lantern, okay? So she lit a lantern, and she left. See, she left the house. Let's see. Oh, I don't know. It doesn't look like a lantern, but it looked like a handbag. Let's see. Well, in Japan, the lantern looks like this. Like that. And so you carry it, and this is a lantern. But I don't know what kind of lantern it was in Europe. Okay, but anyway, she went to church. She had a lantern, and she, lit the road so that she would not stumble over something. And so she lit the lantern and went to church. Okay, now this is church. Okay, and she went into the church. And then when she went to church, the church was, the inside the church was not very bright. It was lit up using candles. Candles were burning, and inside the church it was not too bright, but there was this dim light. Dim light means it's a weak light. A soft, not bright, soft light was inside the church. There were candles lit up. The candles, small candles, were lit up. So she went inside the church, and she saw that there were many, many people in the church. The church was very, very crowded. Crowded. You might be thinking why I write it this way. Okay, the church was very crowded. Crowded means lots of people. It was packed up. The seats, there were many seats in the church, but all the seats were taken, filled with people. And so there were no empty seats. The church was filled. Church was filled with people. the church was filled with people. The place was completely full, absolutely full. The church was entirely full. Entirely means completely, entirely. The whole thing was full. There was no empty seats. And so she went inside and she looked at the people. Well, she didn't know any of these people, and she really looked at them and she thought, oh no, these were not the people from the village or the city. These are not the people she knew around the city. These were her dead relations. These were ghosts, the people who died a long time ago. Many people were in here, but they were all dead people, ghosts. Ghosts. And she looked and looked, and they were her relatives, aunts and uncles and grandmother and grandfather, niece and nephew and cousins and friends. These people were wearing old-fashioned clothes. Old-fashioned, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, old-fashioned garments. Garments means clothes, garments. And their faces were not healthy pink, but their faces were white and blue because they are ghosts. Their faces were pale. Well, there was this strange, nobody was talking and nobody was singing. There were, they neither sang or they neither spoke or sang. Okay, they neither spoke nor sang. Okay, they were not singing, but they were humming, and they were not talking, but they were whispering to each other. In a soft voice, they were talking to each other. And so in the church, there was this humming and there was this whispering. So you could hear things. And then she was looking at these dead people, and then suddenly there was a woman who stood up. And so she looked at the woman, and that was her deceased aunt. Deceased means dead. Deceased aunt was her dead aunt. The dead aunt looked at the woman, the aged mother, and she said, "Look there." The woman said, "Look there." So the woman looked at the altar. Altar, okay? Somewhere around here. Okay. They looked at the altar. Well, I didn't mean to be a top part. It's the, the front part of the church. So she looked at the altar. Oops, altar. Okay, she looked at the altar, and then she saw two people, two men. She saw two men. One was being hung on the gallows. Okay, was hung on the gallows. Okay, this is gallows. Okay, here, the people's head, and when, they kill people, execute people. So this is hanging, okay? So someone was being hung or hanged on the gallows. I think it's hung in the gallows. Gallows is this thing, is gallows. So somebody was hung on the gallows. And another one, there were two men, another one was tied to a wheel, bound to a wheel. So let's see, this is the wagon, yeah, and then someone is tied to the gallows, okay? And then the aunt said to the aged woman, "Look, those are your children. If they had lived, didn't die, and lived to become adults, one of them would have been hung like this on the gallows, and the other one would be tied to the bound to the wheel, because these people, your sons would have become bad people." The aunt said, the God helped you when the children died. God was trying to take care of your future troubles. If they had lived, you want them, the aunt said, you wanted the children to be alive, but if your children lived, they would have become bad people, and one would got hung on the gallows, and the other one would have bound to a wheel. And so you should thank God instead of blaming Him for the children's death. The dead aunt said. The woman began to tremble. The woman began to be afraid. She was surprised to see her children's future troubles. So she decided to go home, not to stay in the church, and she went home. She trembled and went home. When she came home, she sat down. I don't know how do I do this. She sat down. Okay, she sat down. On her knees, she knelt and she prayed. She prayed and she said, "Thank you to God." She said, "Thank you for dealing with, taking care of my future troubles." She thanked God. Okay? So she was not angry with God anymore. After this, after 3 days later, the woman went to bed and she died. The end.